Welcome to a very special night for Queers in Your Ears. We're celebrating 25 years of amazing performances, what we like to call queering your hearing, as it were. Queers in Your Ears grew out of a conversation that Rico Rodriguez and Jean Boba had. And in 1987, the first Queers in Your Ears took place at Bar Babylon. And tonight, in celebrating 25 years, I want to recognize two very special people, Helen Porter, who was so important to so many of the early tellers of Queers in Your Ears, and the late Jen Andrews. And I want to acknowledge that we have had a very long and wonderful history with some fabulous tellers who are well known in a variety of different places. Michelle Pearson Clark, Affie Brown, Ryan Hines, Evelyn Perry, Ken Sedrington, Johnny Moses, Faith Nolan, among many others. And we've performed all over Toronto in some fantastically queer spaces, including This Ain't the Rosedale Library and Glad Day Bookstore, as well as places like the 519 Community Center. And we have a long and lovely association with the Archives. We'll be having a show there in October, and you should watch out for more information about that. So it's a great pleasure to welcome you all here tonight. We have a fabulous lineup of amazing tellers. And before I begin, I do want to acknowledge that those of us in Toronto are telling on the traditional lands of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, and the Wendat, and the Treaty Territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit. We acknowledge them and any other nations who care for the land, acknowledged and unacknowledged, recorded and unrecorded, as the past, present, and future caretakers of this land, referred to as Ke-Toronto, where the trees meet the water, the gathering place. It is essential for Queers in Your Ears to create a space for queer, trans, and two-spirit artists on these storied and sacred lands that have been stewarded by Indigenous people for thousands of years before the arrival of colonial settlers. Queers in Your Ears believes in solidarity and concerted action with all marginalized communities. And we know that no queer liberation can come without decolonization. The stories you'll hear tonight are ones that are intimate tellings from queer and trans lives. And we know that our stories are rarely heard, recorded, and are often erased. We also know that our voices are not a full breadth of our communities, and we look forward to continuing to include many more voices in future tellings. Many stories of this land have been erased by colonization, but as we move forward, let us support Indigenous resurgence across Turtle Island, from Wet'suwet'en to Toronto. So I'm going to start the evening tonight. In the first half, there'll be myself, Leslie Lee Cam, and Jody James. In the second, Rico Rodriguez, Claire Nobbs, and Tyler J Sloane. And I hope you have a wonderfully queer time. Where does my story begin? Don't laugh, but well, I know I was put under a spell. I don't remember the first time it was cast, though I can tell you exactly when the enchantment ended. What I do remember is the way that the words of the spell bound me tighter and tighter until I could barely breathe. And I can remember many of the places where the spell was cast. Perhaps I should start with that. In our house on Paramount Court, where my father began 30 years of belittlement as he poked and prodded at me because of my weight, telling me over and over again how much he despised me. I can hear his voice still. Why don't you get off your fat, lazy ass and do something like your brother? Don't you know what you look like? You're disgusting. You're as disgusting as your mother is. Years and years of verbal abuse. But there are other places. There's a garage nearby our house on Paramount Court where I'm surrounded by a group of boys who are taunting the 6-year-old me. These are the same boys who ridiculed my little brother Jamie for being circumcised. I mean, we were Jewish. We didn't know that Italian boys weren't circumcised. But there they were chanting over and over again, fatty, fatty, 2x4, can't get through the kitchen door. When the door breaks, fatty cries. And that was just the beginning. In the gym at South Prep, I can remember that first night that I joined the Cub troop. Our Cub Master, Baloo, went out of the room, and suddenly I was surrounded by whirling and swirling cubs dancing around me like dervishes and chanting again about Fatty, except that this time Fatty can't get through the bathroom door, shits himself, wipes it up, and does some more. And then on to Forest Hill Collegiate, where the words get more abusive. Lardy, porky, flabby. David Bregman ups the ante at this point. For a year, the year that I was in grade 10, it was a year of terror for me, where David Bregman stalked me at least once a week to beat me up. But now I wasn't just fat anymore. Now I was a fat faggot. Now I was a big fat homo. Now I was a fairy, a fat queer. I don't think I'll ever forget the image of his fists raised above me, ready to strike me in the belly so that he could knock the wind out of me, all the time looking at me with such malice, such hatred. You were looking at me. What were you looking at me for, you faggot? What were you looking for? What was I looking for? I didn't have the strength to fight back. I just cried. And then there's a moment where things change. You know, I think about that old saying, sticks and stones can break my bones, but words can never hurt me. Yes, words can hurt you. Words can scar you. Words can stick into your skin like leeches and pry out your soul. But in 1978, in that summer before I went to university, my mother, who was always one of my greatest allies, enrolled me in a program at the weight loss clinic at Yonge and Eglinton. And in 60 days, I lost 60 pounds. And now I was a new slim and trim me. And I suppose that should have made me happy. I was what everyone had always wanted me to be. But somehow being fat had allowed me to keep the secret of my being queer. Oh, I was called queer, but that didn't necessarily mean that I was queer. But I knew that I was queer, but I didn't know how to be queer. I didn't know what you did when you were queer. I was alone. Remember, this is 1978. There are no gay straight alliances. There aren't any representation of queer teens. There are no phone lines. I was alone, and I didn't know where my community was. And so even though I should have been happy, I think I was more miserable than ever. But that summer, I did discover one thing. I discovered this thing called gay porn. Now, I actually didn't buy any gay porn in Toronto, although I would see it all over the place in every convenience store in neat little cellophane wrappers, as though they were special treasures up on the top shelves of the magazine rack. And it wasn't until I was at university and we were on our fall reading break and I went to Montreal that I had the courage to buy some gay magazines. And one afternoon when my friends were out, I looked through 3 or 4 of them at the scrumptious, at the delicious bodies that were on display before me. And whether it was a combination of disgust at my own lust and desire, or it was just my inability to deal with the sexual frustrations that I realized that I was experiencing because I didn't have any access to sex. I went and I bought 2 extra large bags of potato chips and a liter of Coke, and I fell off the slim wagon, as it were. And within a matter of weeks, I was back to being that big fat fag. But I did make new friends at university, although not in queer circles. You know, that was so close. There were so many things that were just within reach. Homo hops and gays at U of T, and even washrooms were cruising. But I didn't know about any of those at this point. But I did fall in love. I fell in love with Ian Newbigin. And I thought that he had given me signals and signs that he was gay too. I have to tell you that my gaydar's never been particularly good. And I, in a very awkward moment, confessed how I felt to him. And when he didn't react with horror, I guess I assumed that maybe he felt the same way. I mean, this was a pretty big step for, you know, a fat gay faggot from Forest Hill. Maybe it was a week or 2 later that Ian and I went to a concert at Massey Hall. And all during the concert, he kept nudging me and whispering at me, stop moving around. Can't you stay still? I didn't even realize that I was moving. I don't know if it was something so palpable in his anger that was making me so uncomfortable, but at the end of the concert, just as the applause was starting, Ian slipped away. Well, I knew where he lived. He lived at Sir Daniel Wilson residence at U of T, and I followed him. And I found him on Bay Street, just south of Wellesley. And as I came up to him, he turned to me and he said, "Get the fuck out of my life, you big, fat, effeminate fairy." And the spell was cast. That's who I was, a big, fat, effeminate fairy. And for the next 20 years, that's who I was. There's a folk tale that I heard the eminent storyteller Joan Bodger tell that moved me deeply when I first heard it, when I was first becoming a storyteller. King Arthur took his court a Christmasing at Carlisle. And after the Christmas Day feast, he decided to take a horse and ride out into the forest of Inglewood. And he came upon Castle Heward, whose lord, Sir Somer du Jour, known as Baron Grim, challenged him to a joust. And he knocked the king off his horse and would have executed him there and then, but he recognized Arthur. And he told him that he would make a deal with him. If on New Year's Day, Arthur came and could answer a riddle that Sir Gromer would pose. He would let the king live, but he was quite prepared to take off his head. Well, of course, Arthur agreed. And the question, the riddle that Sir Gromer posed was, what is it that a woman wants? Well, Arthur went back to Carlisle and told his court about his encounter. And over the next several days, people gave him many different reasons and different ideas and different things that they thought that women wanted. But Arthur wasn't sure that any of those was right. And he was still thinking about what to say as he rode towards Castle Heward and to meet Sir Gromer. And there on the road, he found a woman who was hideous, gruesome, disgusting. But Arthur, being a noble knight, he spoke to her gently and with great kindness. And she said to him that she could give him the answer that Sir Gromer sought. And she had a wish that she wanted him to fulfill, but she would tell him. And without even asking what that wish was, he bent down and she whispered the answer in his ear. And when he got to the portcullis of Castle Heward and gave that answer to Sir Gromer, Sir Gromer's face became inflamed with rage. He was as red as could be. And without even acknowledging King Arthur, he turned his back on him and went back to his castle. Arthur returned to the Loathly Lady, and she explained that she was Dame Ragnall. She was the sister of Sir Gromer de Jure, and his wife, Lady Mordred, had cast the spell on her. And she said that she wished just one thing. She wished to marry Sir Gawain. Sir Gawain? Arthur said, but I can't just give his hand in marriage. He is the most noble, perfect knight of mine. I can't just give his hand like that. And she said, that is what I wish. And being a man of his word, he helped her up on his horse and they returned to Carlisle. When they entered the courtyard with the Loathly Lady on the back of his horse, when men first saw her, some of them turned away and vomited, while others had to turn their head in disgust. But as for Sir Gawain, reckless, impetuous, handsome Gawain, he said, as you wish, my lord. And he agreed to marry her. Queen Guinevere begged the Loathly Lady not to take Sir Gawain in this way, but the Loathly Lady declined to listen to her majesty. The wedding feast was a maudlin affair, although Sir Gawain seemed to enjoy himself and ate and drank lustily, as did his wife, and even sang several songs. But at last, king and queen led the couple to their marriage bed. And when the door was closed, Gawain, always the courteous knight, bent down to kiss his new bride, although I must admit, he closed his eyes. And when he opened them, expecting to see that Loathly Lady, no, there was the most exquisite princess. How can this be, he said. She smiled and she said, you partly broke the spell that was on me. And so now I can be beautiful by day and ugly by night, or ugly by night and beautiful by day. It is your choice. Well, be beautiful for me then, Sir Gawain said. Be beautiful for me. But she reminded him how painful that would be, how painful it would be to live as she had lived for all these years, as an object of ridicule, as an object of disgust. And he said, my dear, whether you are beautiful by day and ugly by night, or ugly by day and beautiful by night, is your choice. Let it be your choice. And she laughed with great glee and she said, there you have broken the spell completely. You have given me what a woman wants. A woman wants to be who she is when she wants to be that person. And they spent a blissful night together, and in the morning went down to meet King Arthur in his court. But whether she was fair or whether she was ugly is not for me to tell. It is her story now. It is her story now. But you know, I too had a happy ending. It took some time, but the year I turned 40, when I went to Pride, I found myself panicking in the midst of a post-Pride parade crowd when a hand reached out and took mine and led me off Church Street and began to break the spell that I was under. During the next several years that I spent with Dave Wall, during those years, he would look at me and tell me that I was beautiful. Me, beautiful, but I'm so fat. You are gargantuan. You're thick and solid, wide. You're like Henry VIII or Falstaff, and you have all the largeness of those wonderful women that Rubens painted, although of course they didn't have the beards. He took photographs of me, rolls and rolls of photographs during our time together, to show me how much he liked me as I was. And it was through his kindness and generosity that I learned about my baredentity and discovered that there was a place for me. There was a community for me right there waiting. A community where an older, hairy, heavy-set man like myself could find admirers, people who would love them and cherish them and want to be with them. Don't think that it was easy. It wasn't that love, sweet kiss, and then everything was happily ever after. There's a lot of pain involved with breaking a spell. There's a lot of baggage. But eventually, I found my true and perfect knight, Sam, and live in barrenness, a very happy life. But those sticks and stones, those hurtful words, they're always there in the background, like wisps, like ghosts. But I have decided that perhaps Ian Newbegin was right. I am a big, fat, effeminate fairy, and I like who that person is. I like who I am. And just like that loathly lady, I will be who I want to be when I want to be that person. And otherwise, there's no point. I need to be who I am. As my hero Popeye always says, I am what I am, and that's all that I am. And I'm sticking to it. Thank you. I'm going to introduce our next teller now. It is with great pleasure that I introduce Leslie Lee Cam. Take it away.
Okay, thank you so much, Jeffrey. That was an amazing story. So my name is Leslie Lee Cam, and I am a world majority Brown, Trini, Carib, Indo, Chinese, Callaloo, differently abled, queer, dyke, senior. And my stories tonight are going to be about what has been happening to me going into women's washrooms. And I am dedicating these stories to my transgender women friends who are older, who have problems trying to pee. So while I'm telling my stories, I wanted to just keep in mind something as simple as peeing, what we have to go through. So I use a cane. As I said, I'm differently abled, and this is Lily, and Lily has accompanied me into many washrooms in Canada, in the States, and in the Caribbean. So I will be referring to Lily. So I realized when I landed in Toronto in July of 1970, I was a boy. When I left Trinidad, I was a girl. When I arrived in Toronto at the age of 16, I magically became a boy because I didn't look like a typical female. I got this lovely haircut just for tonight, but my hair was shoulder length. I was traveling by myself. I was traveling to Toronto to meet my mother, and I was wearing a really snazzy sky blue shirt with epaulets, with brass buttons, blue navy pants, black leather boots. And little did I know that when the announcement was made from immigration to call my mother to come and get me, the immigration officer announced, "Mrs. Leecam, come and get your son, Leslie." So lo and behold, I arrived in Toronto and I became a boy. So I'm going to tell you a series of little stories that have happened to me since I became a boy, although I identify proudly as a dyke. So I am at Manulife Insurance, my first full-time job, and I'm really excited. And I'm wearing a really nice dress shirt. I have the sleeves rolled up so they don't get dirty. I'm wearing nice dress pants. And I go into the washroom to wash my hands and have a quick pee before I go to my desk. And I'm in the stall and I'm hearing two women who are in the washroom. They saw me come in and go into the stall, and they're Black West Indian women. I can tell from their accents. One of them is from Barbados and one is from Jamaica. And they're saying to each other, "Is that a he or a she? You know, I can't tell. It's a he, she." And I'm listening to this and I'm thinking, I don't believe this. I'm here to work and this is what these women are discussing. So I come out of the stall and I say to them, "Excuse me, I can understand exactly what you are saying. And I am a woman and I'm here to do my job. So please just leave me alone. I just want to pee." So we move on. And now I am volunteering at Bridgepoint Hospital. And I'm wearing my lovely vest that says "Volunteer, how can I help you?" And I'm going to the washroom and I'm using Lily, because we fast forward now to 2015. And I'm going into the washroom and there's a woman coming up behind me. And I hear her say, "You're going to the wrong washroom." So I am ignoring her because I'm a volunteer and I'm just going to pee. And she comes up alongside of me and she grabs my arm and she starts pulling me backwards. Now, I've been physically assaulted at least 3 times trying to go into women's washrooms to pee. So she starts dragging me backwards and I'm walking forwards. And if I had not been wearing the volunteer vest, Lily would have reached out and touched her. But unfortunately, I was representing Bridgepoint, so I had to behave myself. So it became a struggle. I am walking forward into the washroom and this woman is pulling me backwards. And at the same time, she's saying, "You're going into the wrong washroom. You're a man. You can't go in there. Get out, get out." So finally, I disengage myself from her arm. I go into the stall and she remains outside, screaming, "There's a man in here, there's a man in here." And then another woman comes into the washroom and here's this commotion going on. And she says, "I don't want to get involved." And she walks out. By the time I come out, the woman has disappeared. So now we move forward to a lovely Caravana jump up. Trinidad Carnival down at Harborfront. And I'm down there, Lily and I are having a great time. We're jumping up to the soca music. I'm drinking coconut water, but I have to pee. And I'm thinking, oh no, I have to go to the washroom. What's gonna happen? I'm in this public space. And I'm thinking, you know what? These are my people. These are West Indians. These are Trinis who know how to enjoy Caravana. And they will not give me a hard time. Well, surprise, surprise. I'm in the lineup going into the washroom, and a woman comes up and looks at me from the line and plants herself in front of the washroom door with her arms outstretched. And she says to me, "You can't go in there. You mad or what? This is for women. The men's is over there." So Lily reached out and gave her a smart tap on either kneecap. I dashed into the washroom, ran into a stall, and all of a sudden there's commotion. "There's a man in here, there's a man in here." I peed, I washed my hands, and I got out. Union Station, 7 a.m. in the morning. And I have to pee because I'm getting on the GO train to go to Brampton to do a workshop. And I wait until I'm fairly sure there's nobody in the women's washroom because it's still early in the morning. So I go in and there's nobody in there. So I'm thinking, yes, I'm lucky. I go in and I pee as fast as I can. And while I'm in there, I'm hearing women coming in and I'm thinking, oh no, what's going to happen when I come out? So I come out of the stall and there are women at the sink and they see me coming out. And one of them shrieks, "There's a man in here, there's a man in here." And quickly I thought, what do I do? And I go, "Where's the man? Where's the man?" Washed my hands and I was out of there. So now we're in Jacksonville, Florida. Going across the border was an exercise of fear and panic for me because the laws in the US have changed and say trans people are not allowed to use the washrooms of their choice. I don't identify as trans, but I look like I'm transgender. So my good friend Julie had to go with me every time we went to a gas station stop to make sure I was safe. We ended up in Jacksonville. We were visiting her family there. We went to a tourist attraction and there was a shop where you could buy postcards and different novelties and souvenirs. As we were walking to this tourist attraction, an older woman was ahead of me and she kindly opened the door to the shop and she says, "Oh, you go ahead, girl, you just go ahead." So I thought, oh, okay, she called me girl, this is good. So I go in and we're looking around, we're listening to what the guide is saying, describing the tourist spot. And then I realize I need to pee. So I say to Julie, "I'm going to the bathroom." And she says, "Do you want me to come with you? You know, just in case." And I said, "No, I think I'm going to be okay." Just as I start heading in the direction of the washroom, the same very kind older woman who held the door open for me previously walked out ahead of me. So she and I are now heading in the same direction to go to the washroom. And then I noticed she starts looking back over her shoulder. She's looking back, and I thought, wonder if she's looking at me. But she's already seen me. She's already held the door open for me. So we get to the washroom. She goes in, and just as she gets to the door, she looks back, she jumps through the door, and then shuts the door and puts her hands up against the door. And I can see this because it's a glass door, so I can see what she's doing. So she's stopping me from going in and pushing the door from her side, and I'm pushing back from the other side. So finally, I shove the door open. She steps back and she says, "Oh no, what are you doing? What are you doing? You can't come in here. This is the women's washroom." I said, "I just want to pee." And she says, "Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize you was one of us. I didn't realize you was one of us." And I said, "What do you mean, one of us? I'm not white." And she says, "No, I mean, I didn't realize you was a woman. You was a woman." I said, "Lady, just get out of my way. I just want to pee." And the whole time I'm in the stall peeing, she's outside. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't realize you was one of us." Move over now to Tobago. A lovely island, wonderful beaches. It was so nice for me to be back home, but I had to pee. So that morning we get to the beach, and I didn't want to pee in the sea. And I went over to the washrooms, but I couldn't get in because they were doing something at the time. So I was talking to a government worker who was sitting outside. And I said to her, "So, can I get a beach chair? When will the washrooms be open?" And she says, "Oh, you're from here. You're sounding like you're from here, but you're sounding kind of foreign." I said, "No, I'm a Trini." And she says, "But you don't really sound like a Trini. You don't live here a long time." I said, "Yeah, I've been living away for a while." So I go away and I come back and I said, "Is the washroom open yet? Can I get a beach chair?" "No, no, no, come back, come back." So the third time I go back, the washrooms are open. She's sitting there, she's watching me. Now I'm walking towards the washrooms. And out of the corner of my eye, sure enough, she gets up from her chair and she starts walking behind me. And I hear her say, "You see the sign?" I said, "Yes, I can see the sign. That is the female washroom you're going to. The signs in Tobago are 4 feet high and 4 feet wide, just so you know where you're supposed to go. And they don't say men's and women's, it's male and female." So I'm heading towards the female washroom. And now she has her hand on my shoulder and she's pulling me back. And she's shouting, "You're going to the female washroom." And I'm saying, "Yes, I know where I'm going. I can read. It says female." And I'm walking ahead. I'm holding on to Lily and I'm trying my best for Lily not to reach out and touch this woman because there are other people around us and I do not want to get into trouble with the law. I'm going into the washroom. She's holding on to me. I'm moving further. Now I'm actually into the washroom and she's grabbing onto my arm. "You're in the wrong washroom. I can't believe you're in here. Look at you with your hair short, 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 and your chest flat, and your legs hairy, and you're telling me you're a female? I can't believe you is a female when you're looking like that." And then she says, "Last week there was another one just like you. No hair, flat as a board. But she had 3 little children with she. And she tell me she's a female too. And you know what? I wonder how she could feed them 3 children when she had nothing up here at all. And she struggled with me the same way like you. And I said, I just want to pee. Please let me be. I just want to pee. So I made it in and she walked away. Luckily, she walked away and left me to pee. Over to Trinidad with the Piarco International Airport. Again, I just want to pee. But I have to be strategic because it's a busy airport. There are flights coming and going. And I'm sitting near to the entrance to the women's washroom and I'm paying attention to the comings and goings. And I choose my time carefully when I realize there's not been much action. So I'm pretty much going to be alone going into the washroom. I go in and there's nobody in there. And I thought, hallelujah, it's safe for me to be in here. I go in and I pee quickly. And as I come out, I see this little brown man standing there by the sink. I was about to say to him, what are you doing in here? And he says to me, fella. In Trinidad, men call each other fella. Fella, I come in here, you know, because I see you going in the women's washroom. And I come to tell you, fella, you in the wrong washroom. And then he skedaddles out. So I wash my hands and I come out and my friend Julie says, what happened? I saw that man going in. And so I explained what happened. So we come out, we get on the plane, and guess who is sitting in the seat behind me? That little brown fella. And I said to him, thank you for letting me know that I was going into the women's washroom. And you know what? You and I are going to be sharing the same washroom on this plane. So the moral of the story is, please, let us be. Back in Toronto, going to the theater. My friend Julie has decided we need to be more rich in our culture. We need to go to the theater. Go to one theater, go to another theater, and I keep hearing the same thing going into the washroom. Do you know where you are? Because the people who go to the theater are more cultured, and these women don't shriek out, do you know there's a man in here? Or they don't try to stop you from going in, or they don't say, oh, you're a he, she. Oh no, you're standing in line, you get in, and they come up to me and they say, do you know where you are? And finally, after about 5 or 6 times of this happening in less than 3 months, I was so frustrated. I finally said to the woman, I said, yes, I know where I am. I am on the indigenous lands of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, the Huron-Wendat, and the Mississaugas of the Credit. So all I am asking in the name of transgender women and women who look like me, please, when you see us, have an open mind and be kind, because all we want to do is pee. Thank you. And now it is my pleasure to introduce Jody James, your next storyteller.
Thanks, Leslie. Thank you for that very important story. Jeffrey asked if I would tell this story to help celebrate Queers in Your Ears 25th anniversary at the festival, and I'm very honored and very delighted to do so. It's a story based on a Haitian folk tale that was collected by Diane Volkstein in The Magic Orange Tree. Owl thought he was ugly. He spent his time with friends and working, and he was content enough. But one night, he actually met a girl. He saw her sitting on her porch one evening as he was on his way home. The glow from the house illuminated her tall form as she sat smoking her evening pipe. He introduced himself, and to his surprise, she invited him to sit on the stairs with her and talk. Well, they hit it off, and they talked, and they laughed all through the night. Owl liked this girl, but he was worried that if she caught sight of him in the light of day, she would not like him. So before the sun rose, he made his excuses and he went home. Well, the next day, that girl is all Owl could think of. Her strong, beautiful form, how the soap of her body smelled and mixed with the scent of her pipe, how it felt when she leaned into him when she burst out laughing at something he'd said. He thought of her all day, and he decided that he was going to go back and see her again that night. So he did. And he went the night after that. And as nights turned to weeks and weeks turned to months, their affections turned to love. Owl knew that this girl was the girl he wanted to spend the rest of his life with. And so he asked her to marry him. But before she could say yes, first she needed to get permission from her mother. "You want to marry that owl?" she spat. "He only comes and visits you in the shadows of night. He doesn't even come in the daytime." "Well, mother, I told you, he works during the day. Nighttime is the only time he can come and see me." "Well, still, I want to see his face if he's going to marry my daughter." "I'll tell you what, invite him to our house this Sunday. We'll have a dance in his honor. Surely he doesn't work on Sundays." So it was set. That Sunday, there was to be a feast of food and music and dancing. Well, Owl was pleased with the invitation. He'd never had a dance in his honor before. But he realized that this would be the first time that the girl would see him in the light of day, and his stomach dropped. And he decided to ask his cousin Rooster if he would go with him to help bolster up his courage, and Rooster agreed. Well, the day arrived, and Rooster arrived at Owl's house late in the morning with 2 horses so that they could ride to the girl's house in style. Well, Owl saw Rooster sitting atop his horse with such confidence, it made him scared. Rooster's feathers were puffed and pointed and so colorful, and Owl's feathers were round and flat and gray. Rooster looked so handsome in his clothes, and Owl's finest clothes were still weathered and worn. Owl imagined the girl comparing him with Rooster, and he was filled with shame. "Rooster, you go on ahead of me. I'm not quite ready yet. You tell them I'll be along shortly." So Rooster did. He went ahead to the party ahead of Owl. And as the sun began to dip on the horizon, Owl made his way. And as that sky turned from blue to black, he tied his horse on a mapow tree outside of the girl's yard. He walked into the yard and slunk around the shadows in the corners until finally the girl noticed him and pulled at him into the light of the lanterns. "What is that on your head?" she said. "It's a hat," said Owl. "You see, I was riding here on my horse and a branch hit me and it scratched my eyes, and the light hurts my eyes, so I have to wear this hat in front of my face." "Oh, Owl," she said, and pulled him along to go meet her family. Well, after the introductions were made, Owl tried to slink back into the corners, but she said, "No way, you and I are going to dance." Well, they went into the backyard, the lanterns decorated beautifully, tables heavy with food, music playing, and everyone dancing and laughing. The girl pulled Owl close and they began to dance. The drums beat so wildly, Owl could feel his own heartbeat in the ground beneath his feet. His body moved, each part connecting to a different drum's rhythm. Owl was a great dancer, and that girl was so proud to have him on her arm, even if he was wearing that silly hat. Well, the night went on, and they were having a fine time, but Owl started to worry. He worried that the sun was about to rise. So he went to his cousin Rooster and he asked if he would sing out when the sun came up so that he could make his way home before the girl could see him. And Rooster agreed. But you see, Rooster was also having a fine time at that party, and he didn't notice the sun beginning to rise. And Owl didn't notice the sun as it got high into the sky, casting light through the whole yard. Well, suddenly Rooster noticed and he cried out, "Kokioko!" And everybody fell silent. Well, just at that moment, the girl's mother reached out and snatched the hat off of Owl's face. Owl covered his face in shame and he ran to his horse, the girl running after him, calling for him to stop. Well, as he climbed on his horse, the girl caught sight of him for the first time. His round, handsome face, his soft, silky feathers, and those big, dark eyes that seemed to hold the whole universe inside. He was the most beautiful creature she had ever seen. Well, she cried out to him and called for him to come back, but it was too late. He was already on his horse. He was already riding away. Well, the girl waited for Owl to return. She waited a long time, many nights, but he never came back. The girl eventually married Rooster, and they were happy enough together. But every night, as that sky turned from blue to black, she went out on her porch, she smoked her pipe, and she wondered at every rustling of those shadows if she would ever see Owl again. Thank you.
Welcome back to the second half of Queers in Your Ears, the 25th anniversary edition. And thank you to the great storytellers we heard in the first set, Jody, Leslie, and Jeffrey. I also want to thank the people from Storytelling Toronto for having us, and Lynn and Brian for the technical support tonight. This story I'm going to tell, I have to acknowledge the assistance from the digital initiatives on the Canada Council. They assisted me. And also Marcia Shandor from True Stories Told Life, who gave me guidance to come up with this story. This story is for Doug. And last year, as I walked on the street when the plague started, there were these signs that says, the Onisset signs, in the Onisset font that said, we're in this together. And they're still around. And I started to ask myself, are we really all in this together? And a year later, it's proven that we're not. We're not all in this together. So the plague is affecting us differently. And many, many years ago, there's another plague that affected gay men and still affecting gay men. And we were all suspect, as we were last year before we got our vaccinations, some of us who were privileged to have them. And back then, we were all suspect, and we were not all of us in this together. And just pretty much like today, I kept thinking in terms of COVID, I didn't get it, but we were all affected by COVID. So this story is called Free from It in My Body, but not free from it in my mind. It's summer of 1985, and it's 9:30 on a bright Sunday morning, and I feel amazing. I'm walking down the street on George Street in Peterborough, a town about an hour and a half from here, Toronto, and the sun is shining, and I'm wearing the same clothes I wore to the party last night, which is a total giveaway for the gossips along the walk of shame. I just spent a night with this guy that I really like. We had a fantastic night. We had great sex. We were really into each other. And for me, this is not a walk of shame. This is the walk of joy. And I really don't care who finds out where I was last night. Aretha Franklin is singing in my head. We're gonna riding on the freeway of love, wings against our back. We're gonna riding on the freeway of love in my pink Cadillac. Well, I get to the Four Corners downtown and I see a Toronto Starbucks, and Aretha is interrupted by the photograph I see in the front cover of the Star. And it's a man, and he looks listless and haggard. He just looks awful. And on top of it, the word AIDS, AIDS. There it is in big letter, AIDS. And by now, I know about AIDS. I know a little about AIDS. It's the gay cancer that is killing gay men. And so my stomach goes in a knot. I started sweating. My throat gets dry. My heart is beating hard. My mind is racing. And I'm telling myself that no, this is not about me. This is not about me. This is about the gays in the big cities. This is not affecting us. I live in Peterborough. I don't live in Toronto. I'm not like those gays in the city that are having sex in bathhouses and in parks and are promiscuous like hell. No. It's not about me. It's not about me. And I'm not even that gay. I'm not out to my family. Some of my friends don't even know I'm gay. No, this is not about me. So I pick up the newspaper and I look at the picture, and this man has a look of death. I read the caption. It's Rock Hudson, the movie star. He's unrecognizable. It's scary to see him. Suddenly, it just hits close to home, and I'm panicking. Am I safe? Should I stop doing what I'm doing? I keep walking. I walk by the Catholic church near my house. I'm not a practicing Catholic anymore. I haven't been in church for many years. But Catholic guilt hits me and hits me hard. And I hear this voice that says, being gay is wrong. It's a sin. You're going to die if you continue doing this. And I shake my head and said, bullshit, that's bullshit. But I walk scared. Now, I get home and my 3 roommates are sitting around the table and they have the paper. They're reading the Toronto Star, and I get scared. And I don't want them to ask me any questions. They know I'm gay. One of my roommates' brother is the biggest homosexual in town. But this changes everything. We don't know how you get AIDS. Do you get it from sitting in the toilet? Do you get it from sharing cutlery? Do you get it from doorknobs? Nobody knows about it. And I'm really afraid that they might ask me to leave. I want to just be invisible. And I sit down. And one of them says, so Rock Hudson, eh? Was he gay? And the other one says, well, there were rumors of parties by pools with young boys. Oh, but look at the poor guy. He's dying. Now I breathe slow and I relax. They don't say anything to me. They never asked me anything. They never said anything to me. And I feel terrible all of a sudden. I feel bad. I feel bad about my mom. My mom is really a big fan of Rock Hudson. And she's going to be so upset that not only that he's dying, but she's going to find out he's gay. And little does she know that her son is gay too. Now, a couple of months later, I come to Toronto to a birthday party for a friend, and I stay the night afterwards at my mom's. In the morning, I wake up and I go to the bathroom and I wash my face. And there in the mirror, I see that I have a growth in my right side. It's kind of swollen, and I touched it. And now I start panicking. I'm paralyzed with fear. The 8th Community of Toronto, the newly formed 8th Community of Toronto Act, have been passing pamphlets at the gay bars that, you know, they give information about AIDS, and it says there that you can protect yourself from HIV, from acquiring HIV by wearing condoms when you have sex. But it also says that you can get swollen glands when you have AIDS or when you're HIV positive. So I'm paralyzed with fear. And I realized I've been in the bathroom quite a long time and my grandmother has to come in. So I come out pretending that I don't know anything. And immediately my abuelita looks at me and she says, ¿Qué te pasa? ¿Qué es eso en la cara? And I pretend I don't know. I said, what? And she brings me to the bathroom and she shows me. And I'm looking, oh, I don't know. I pretend that I haven't seen it. And she says, está hinchada. Oh, son paperas. That's the mumps. When you were a little boy, you had them only on one side. So she goes to get my mom. And there's my mom. And my mom comes and she looks at me. She said, oh, sí, no te preocupes. Don't worry about it. It's paperas. Creo, it's paperas. And tomorrow I'll make sure that you go to my doctor and he's going to, tell you what to do. And just stay for a few days here in Toronto. We'll take care of you. Okay, I felt somewhat relieved. I breathe slow again. They're moms. They're supposed to know about this stuff. But I looked at myself in the mirror again, and now I haven't prayed in many years, but I started praying to the Virgin Mary again. Dios te salve María, llena eres de gracias, el Señor es contigo. The next day I go to my mom's doctor and he confirms that it's the mumps. Now you'll get better in a couple of weeks. Just rest, stay at your mom's. They'll feed you. You don't have to do much. Just lie down and watch TV. Now I feel some relief, and I'm starting to wonder if my prayers have been answered. Now, part of me is doubtful. He didn't even test me. How does he know this is not HIV? As I leave his office, I make a promise to the Virgin Mary that I won't have sex with men, that I'm not going to be sinning anymore. But in no time, my carnal desires prove to be stronger than any feelings of guilt that I have. And I break my promise to the Virgin. And I go back to having sex with men. But no matter how much fun it was or how much pleasure I had, I always felt guilty and remorseful. And for days after I had sex, I was constantly checking my face, my glands. And I continued obsessively with mirrors, look at my back for spots that I could get, because that's what they said, that you will get spots if you're HIV positive and you have AIDS. Now, later that year, I moved to Toronto. I moved to Toronto with members of the reggae band that I used to play in. And we had a goal of seeking stardom in the big city, which totally unpredictably proves to be more than elusive. So I get a day job and I'm a percussionist, and I can play with other people, and I play with many people in bands, and I play on the Queen Street strip, and I soon become a Queen West art fag. So I joined that scene, the Queen West art fag scene. Now, many of the art fags in Queen Street would never would be caught dead, seen caught dead at Church Street in the gay village. They will never go there. But I don't care. I go to the gay village. I go to both. I go to the gay village and I go to the bars, and I'm like Whitney. Ooh, I want to dance with somebody. I want to feel the heat with somebody who loves you. Now, at the bars, there's a lot of drinking and there's a lot of dancing for sure. And there's a lot of feeling the heat with somebody afterwards. Not much love, I would say, but there's a lot of stuff going on. Now, when I pick a guy or a guy picks me up and I'm being careful, I pop out a condom and I said, better safe than sorry. And sometimes it goes quite well and we have a great time and everything's smooth riding. But sometimes when I do that, it's a rough ride. And it's not because the sex is rough, it's because the mere insinuation of the presence of the condom means that I might be HIV positive or that I'm insinuating they might be HIV positive. So they take great offense and they put their clothes on and they leave. When I'm not being careful, I know I'm playing Russian roulette. But when I am asked for my status, I am completely mortified because I have not been tested. I don't know what my status is. Now, I know I should go get tested. It's the rational thing to do, but I haven't. And so many of the boys just leave. They don't want anything to do with me. And this question, whether I'm positive or not, totally consumes me. I know that getting tested is a must. I know that I have to go get tested. I'm seeing so many friends who are sick, who are dying, and this makes me feel that I need to go. But truth is that I'm more terrified of knowing than of dying. Now, I'm terrified of knowing because if I find out that I'm positive, I'm definitely going to have to come out to my mom, my family, some friends that do not know. And I ask myself this question, will I continue to be hired by those people and those bands that don't know that I'm gay? Sexual orientation is not even a grounds in the human rights of Ontario to not to discriminate you. And so I'm afraid that I can lose my home, I can lose my job, I can be evicted. It's just so scary. There's so many layers. It's so complicated. And I know it's stupid not to get tested. But I tell myself that, well, if you get sick, the decision will be made for you and you won't have to get tested and you'll just know. And so for a few years, I go on like this with my head in the sand because it feels less scary to be in the safety of my dark corner in my closet. It's summer of 1989 and I'm at work. I get a call from my new roommate, Doug. Doug's gay. We're just roommates. There's no relationship. We're just having fun living together. He's great. He's not complicated at all. He's a great guy. And he's calling me and he says, there's something we should have talked about before we moved in together. And I'm instantly worried. Did I clean the shower? Is it my Latino cooking? Does he like it? Is it about money? Now we agreed to meet at Woody's, a new bar that's just opened on Church Street. And we get there at the same time that afternoon and we sit down by the window and we order a picture. And Doug says, there's something we should have talked about before we moved in together. I'm HIV positive. And immediately he says to me, are you? And I'm stunned and speechless. Up to that moment, the only time I've been asked that question is just before I was going to have sex with a guy. So suddenly that knot in my stomach returns. My throat is dry. My mouth is dry. I'm kind of shaking and I'm breathing hard and I'm panicking and stupid and foolish thoughts invade my head. We share a bathroom. We share plates, cutlery. We touch doorknobs. Oh my God, am I going to get HIV? Am I going to get AIDS? Am I going to die? And I'm trying to not let my face reveal these stupid thoughts because I know better now. I'm being so uncool. And Doug says, so are you? Are you? And I say, well, I'm not sure. He says, you're not sure? like, you haven't been tested? And I said, no, I have not. But why not? He says, and I know I'm now feeling guilty and stupid. And I say, I don't know, I'm scared. And he said, scared of knowing? Of knowing, yes. Very scared of knowing. But this is about your health, he says. And my mouth starts going a mile a minute. And I'm afraid, because if I'm positive, I'm going to come out to my mom, to my family. I'm going to have to, like, I don't know what's going to happen at work. Are they going to fire me? You know, and AIDS it's a death sentence anyways. It's like, and oh my God, how can I say this to you? How can I say this to you? And Doug's just sitting there calmly, totally cool. And he looks at me and he says, stop. Just stop. He says, you need to go get tested. And when you're ready, just tell me. And he holds my hands and he says, I'll go with you. A week later, we go to the hassle-free clinic where they do anonymous testing. The receptionist hands me a little paper with a number. That's my ID. We sit in the open room, and I recognize some guys from the bars and the bathhouses, and we glance at each other with half looks and feeling our collective guilt. The counselor calls my number and asks me to come, and I'd say that Doug's going to come with. We go to his office at the back, and he's very professional. He's very nice. He's very cool, calm, collected. And he says to me, and why are you here? He's trying not to make me feel judged at all. But I can't help it. My Catholic upbringing descends on me. It makes me feel like I'm kneeling at the confessionary. And I said, I had unprotected sex many times, and I need to get tested. I get tested. And he says to me, come back in 2 weeks for your results. But come back anytime if you feel you need us. I leave that place feeling like death. We go to Woody's, Doug and I, and we sit by the window and order a pitcher. And he tries to cheer me up. And I say to Doug, how can you carry on like this? How can you be so cheery knowing what you do? And he looks at me and he says, look at me. I am living my life. Knowing has liberated me. And I say, so please tell me, what do I do with myself for the next 2 weeks? He says, the first thing you do is you convince yourself you have it. You convince yourself you're HIV positive, and you prepare for what you're going to tell your mom, your family, your friends, and prepare for how you're going to live with it. Then when the results come, if you're positive, then you already knew. And if you're negative, well, you're negative. Either way, he says, the day you get your results, we'll be back here, we'll sit here, we order a picture, and we will celebrate. Now, for the next 2 weeks, I drank a lot. I drink not to think about it. I drink not to be scared. And on weekdays, some straight bars downtown Toronto had gay nights. So Mondays, it was the Lisa Lounge. Tuesdays, it was the Limelight. Wednesdays, it was Still Life. Thursdays, it was Boom Boom Room. I go to every single gay night there is. And I drink a lot. And I'm up till 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, you know, and I stumble home and I get up to go to work at 9 o'clock, and I get into work and I'm still oozing and smelling of booze. And I'm still drunk, but I'm a functioning drunk, and I manage. Now, on the weekends, I go to the gay village, to the clubs, and I don't pick up anybody. I'm terrified of picking anybody up. And I continue to drink. Now, all this drinking doesn't work. I'm still completely terrified, and I'm still completely scared. And I'm starting to think that perhaps I'm going to die of cirrhosis of the liver before HIV gets me or AIDS gets me. Now, but drinking and being drunk is not all I did. I actually followed Doug's advice. I convinced myself I'm HIV positive. I raised speeches for my mom, my family, some friends. And on page 2 of Extra, the gay newspaper, they run this segment called Proud Lives, which is kind of like a memorial, a photo memorial for people who have died of HIV and AIDS. So I go get a haircut and take my picture, because if I'm going to be there, I want to look good. And I try to write my own obit, but I'm only 29. And what the fuck have I done? Like at 29. And oh my God. But at least I have a good picture of me. That's what I thought. Now, finally, the day to get my results come. And Doug, unfortunately, has a change in his work schedule, and I cannot come. He cannot come with me. And I'm very scared now. I'm going to go there by myself. I'll meet at Woody's afterwards to celebrate, he says. Now, before I leave for my appointment, I stare at a few bottles that I have there, but I don't touch them. I don't drink. I'm sitting in that same open room at the Hassle Free. It's busy there today. Once again, I recognize some of the guys from the bathhouses and the bars. We glance at each other with uncomfortable half looks. I'm feeling the collective guilt again. My number is called. I feel good. It's the same counselor that tested me. I study his face and his body to see if he gives me any sign of anything, but he doesn't give anything away. We walk to the back, go to his office, sit down, and he opens my file. Now my stomach's knotted. I'm breathing hard. My throat, my mouth are dry. My hands are shaking. My heart is beating hard. And he looks at me and he says, we always have to protect ourselves by having safer sex. And he hands me a bunch of condoms. We always have to wear condoms, he says. Now, he says, if you have unprotected sex, again, you're going to have to come back and get tested again. I said, yes, thanks. And he says, but for now, we have nothing to worry about. And I asked him, what does that mean? Oh, he says, your test came back negative. I want to scream. Yeah, I want to scream, but this is not the place or the time to do it. I do feel relief. My shoulders drop. The knots all over my body give. But I immediately think about Doug. And I feel guilty. I have spent the last 2 weeks telling myself I am positive, preparing to tell my mom and my friends and the rest of the world that I'm HIV positive. But I have not prepared myself to tell my friend Doug, who is positive, that I'm negative. I have not spent any time thinking about my friend who's supporting me. In a total daze and feeling awful, I walk to Woody's to meet Doug. I get there before him and I sit by the front window and I order a pitcher and I wait. Doug walks in, he sits down in front of me. He looks at my face and he smiles. He just knows. He just knows. And he says, now that you know, you are free. You are free. You're liberated. And I hold his hands and I say, I might be free from it in my body, but not free from it in my mind. Oh, he shakes his head. What matters most now is that you know. And so come on, let's celebrate. We raise our glasses and we cheer. What would I do if I sang out of tune? Would you stand up and walk out on me? Lend me your ears and I'll sing you a song. I will try not to sing out of key. Ooh, I get by with a little help from my friends. I'm gonna get high with a little help from my friends. I'm gonna try with a little help from my friends. Ooh, ooh. Thank you. Thank you. Ooh. It is my pleasure to introduce my partner for 25 years, my partner in querying your ears, dear Claire Knobs.
Thank you, Rico. Community is in my bones. Queerness is in my bones. Being a girl guide is in my bones. I've always sought out community, needed to feel that I belong, whether that was the church I was in growing up or my neighborhood or the queer community that I fast became a part of when I first came to Canada years ago. The community that nurtured and sustained me in the difficult early years of being an illegal queer trying to stay. I was raised a socialist, instilled with the values of giving back and looking out for others as a neighbor, a parent, a social worker, a queer social worker, looking out for the queer kids. And no fuck about to mess with them or they're gonna mess with me. Once a guide, always a guide, my mother always says, and she would know. As my girl guide leader, my mom took me and my sister and everybody else's kids to camp every single year, starting from when I was about 2 to the age of 16. In the blistering sun and the pouring rain, we did it all. Horseback riding camp, caving camp, rock climbing camp, canal clearing camp. Okay, I exaggerate. Canal clearing camp was not my mom's idea. The leader of that one was a lanky, very white guy named Gary. We'll call him Racist Gary for short. Racist Gary thought it was funny to quote racist TV shows over dinner, until I told him he had to stop it. And he looked me right in the eye and he said, "You obviously don't want to be here, so you should just go pack your bags." To which I replied, "For once you're right about something and you should just go fuck yourself." But I learned a lot at guide camp. I mastered the art of building fires and cooking on them. I learned all my knots and lashings. Now that came in handy later. I also became very skilled at building all kinds of furniture with bamboo canes and string. You name it, washstands, boot racks, bedding racks, anything and everything to keep the campsite tidy and nurture my inner Virgo. I earned a badge to take my own patrol to camp. And then I earned so many badges, I became a Queen's Guide. Mother's pride. But don't get me wrong, I wasn't always a good girl guide. Once on our way home from Brownies, Juliet Bealey and I thought it would be fun to hike up our uniforms and bare our bums to the traffic on the long, leafy boulevard home. Unfortunately for us, Mary Bunting's mom was looking out the kitchen window at the time and saw the whole thing. She picked up the phone, and by the time I got home, I had a severe scolding and I was grounded from Brownie Camp that summer. I transgressed at guide camp too. In my awkward tween needing to fit in years, I accepted a dare from one of my patrol mates to poop in the middle of a field in broad daylight in front of my whole patrol for the price of 50 pence. I needed to fit in. But a brownie guide thinks of others before herself and does a good turn every day. And so, naughtiness aside, I did do. Still, I can't stop myself. Somebody needs a hand, there I am. If we're on the subway and they drop something, I reach for it. Or if they're on the street, they're looking at a map, my girlfriend will say to me, go on, I can see your girl guide is itching. And so I say, can I help you? And often they'll respond, no, we're fine. But isn't it better to ask and be told no thank you than to let people think that no one cares? It's not such a cold, uncaring world after all. Can I help? I might as well be in uniform. Now, some might say that queerness is incongruous with the Girl Guides. But setting aside the institutional trappings, the religious dogma, and the mainstream, some might even say militarism of it all, I felt at home with the Girl Guides. Helping others is inherent too in my experience of queerness. The experience of knowing what it is to need understanding, to be seen and supported, to belong, and to look out for others too, so nobody else is left behind or alone. I feel it in my bones. And I come by it honestly. You see, there's a long history of queer helpers that's unsung and little known outside the community. It was the lesbians who helped create the care teams that supported so many countless gay men dying alone of AIDS at the height of the crisis in the 80s and early 90s. The women who stepped up and stood by the men and their exhausted lovers and friends when society had all but abandoned them. The women proved it takes a village to care for those you love, and the community grew in spite of the loss. One lesbian who committed countless hours to the ACT UP movement back then was the brilliant artist, filmmaker, teacher, and self-described wanderer, the late Melissa Levin. Melissa created the Lesbian Helper Project in 1996 to nurture a safe world in which lesbians and all people can live without fear of discrimination and violence. How it works, said her manifesto. Whenever a lesbian helper is out and about, and she cheerfully and sincerely comes to the rescue, even in the simplest of ways, she has done her job and done it well. But there is another component. Giving a card that says you have been assisted by a lesbian helper. Think globally, act locally. To show that this was an act of care by someone who might otherwise have been completely dismissed. And to demonstrate that lesbians exist in all shapes and sizes, and that we have a heart. Melissa also gave out nail files to assist you through a rough spot. Pens embossed with lesbian helpers, we've always been here. And embroidered patches that no doubt ruffled feathers back in the early 90s when people thought they could smell a queer a mile off and were afraid it was catching. The double entendre of the line, "We've always been here," is a reference to the chant we used to call at the Pride March. We're here, we're queer, and we are everywhere. And the tradition lives on. But of course, you know, it's not just lesbians. In my life, there's someone who's a far better Queen's Guide than I'll ever be. And that's my good friend, Jim. Jim's the kind of guy who will spot a man ogling at a woman on a very crowded bus. The woman trying to awkwardly avert his gaze, but they're so packed in tight, it's impossible. But Jim manages to wedge himself between the two of them and block that man's gaze until the woman can safely get off the bus. And then there was the time Jim became the flower guy. After work one day, he's on his way to a seminar, still dressed in his suit, and he's at the corner of Bay and Adelaide waiting to cross. There's a tap on his shoulder. He turns around. It's the guy who'd been selling flowers just a few feet away at the corner. The guy says to him, "You look like a nice person. Do you mind watching my stall just for a few minutes? I have to nip to the mall. I gotta go to the bathroom." "Well," says Jimmy, "I'm sorry. I gotta go to a seminar. I'm really not dressed for it. I don't know the first thing about selling flowers." "There's nothing to it," says the guy. "Look, roses are 15, carnations are 10, and everything in that bucket's $5. And he was gone. And Jim was the flower guy, standing there with the buckets. And then this person comes over and he says, "Excuse me, how much for the carnations?" Jim's like, I think those are carnations, right? Those are 10. Those are $10. Do you have change for a 20? "Oh, no, I don't have any change. You see, I'm not really the flower guy. The real flower guy, he had to go to the bathroom." And the person left in disgust. And people came and people went. People looked at him funny. And then a woman came over and she said, "How much for the roses?" Jimmy says, "Look, they're $15 and I don't have change." And he explained the whole story. And do you know what? That woman agreed to take his spot and watch the flower stall till the real flower guy came back. Maybe she was a lesbian helper. And maybe, just maybe, when the real flower guy came back, maybe she gave him a card to tell him so. And then there was the time that Jim and I were on the subway heading north from Wellesley Station late one Friday night. There were a couple guys looked like they'd probably been partying on Church Street, minding their own business in the corner. And then there was these two cavemen across the aisle, glaring at the others, muttering hateful things under their breath. And then their voices started getting louder and filling the subway car, and they were making violent threats. And beside me, I felt Jimmy straighten up, take a deep breath. And he stood up and he said, "Everybody, do you see what's happening right now? Do you see these two? What they're doing is illegal. That's harassment and it's illegal. And if they don't get off at the next stop, I'm going to hit this yellow bar and I will report them. And you are all witnesses." Subway hero. But I gotta tell you, it doesn't always work out like that. In fact, sometimes it can get downright ugly. Okay, so one day, early in the morning, I'm heading into Bay Station. Just ahead of me on the stairs, there's what looked like an older woman. She was dressed in this rather shabby shawl and a long black dress. She seemed to be really struggling with a very heavy suitcase. And I could see she was just shuffling to try to get down those steps. And so I came up beside her and I reached out towards the suitcase and I said, "Can I help with that?" With a flick of her head and a broken tooth glare, eyes boring into my soul, she growled, "No, fuck you. You should have stayed in hell, stupid." "Oh," I replied, and dashed down the stairs, and like shit off a stick, I dashed to the far end of the platform. "Lend a hand," they said. Not that day. But so you see, helping other people, it comes with the territory. We know what it feels like to need help, and we know what it feels like to receive it. So whether you're a Queen's Guide, a lesbian helper, or a subway hero, or all of the above, we're here, we're queer, and we've come to lend a hand. And now it gives me absolute delight and pleasure and honor to welcome our final teller, the lovely Tyler J. Sloane.
Thank you, Miigwech. Thank you so much for sharing space with me, Jeffrey, Rico, Jody, Claire, and Leslie. Such an honor to be in space with your stories. I wanted to take just a moment to acknowledge what today is for me, because my story will be talking a little bit about my community today. Today is Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women Awareness Day. It is a day where Canada has finally recognized the ongoing violence with missing and murdered women and girls and Indigenous Two-Spirit and Indigenous queer folks all across Canada. And I get the fortunate opportunity right now to be able to share space with all of you and share a story about love. And so I just always encourage you to continue to support other Indigenous women and matriarchs and girls so that they are also able to, in their full capacities, share all of the love that they have. Miigwech. This is a story called Melt, and it is about a love. Here we go. "You look good," is what I want to tell you if we bumped into each other. As I fight the urge to think about your lips, letting my mouth instead twitch into a tame smile, nothing exciting or nervous or even threatening, just a smile, a simple smile that's opening the door. I'd look at you and wonder if the velvet whisper notes still danced out of your mouth while you sang. Do you still fling your arms up when your favorite songs come on? Do you still dance like that? Do you? Do you still have that small sway of your hips and that youthful smile that you offer so shyly, bashfully, so utterly you that it quakes my heart? Tectonic plates are no match for the shifts that you have on my earth. My foundation, my mind, my heart is still overwhelmed by the idea of you. So I'm positioning you as a pen pal, used as a tool to bring us closer. So stick with me for a moment, just this moment, and listen. Ani, hello, hi, what's up? What's going on? What you up to? I'm not sure if we'll ever be closer than now, but it's the anniversary of clarity, and unlike clarity now I'm swimming in an abundance of stillness, an abundance of my own choices. And so I thought, now that I had time, now that the world is slower, how do I say I missed you in a way you'll feel? I pause for you sometimes unintentionally, My thoughts hiccup on you when something reminds me of you, and I keep thinking about the small of your back every time someone else touches their lovers. You make me feel like I'm starting something new. A college classmate years ago once said that you only miss someone after you remember them or when you see them again. It's like an empty gesture. When I think of you, I feel full and longing and searching. Don't mistake me though, because you had told me you had seen me in public at events supporting other people while I supported them. And when we were together, I would be so gentle, in touch, in encouragement, and asking for you to come support me. Yet you've been around me without me knowing. And now I feel like some part of your exclusionary perversion. I know you didn't come to see me at that event, but what we had was louder than the silence and lack of acknowledgement you gave me. And I'm not blaming you, but I'm still so mad about not trying to make you smile or having any sense of control. Keep control by seeing me and have me shaken by telling me that you saw me later. You told me you saw me, but it was so long ago. After that, my scorpion spinster would be on alert, waiting to pick up on you. I would go on transit and pass by people's faces in districts, wondering if I'd seen you and missed you. Would we sit across from each other, or would we see each other from across the line through the gapes of people that stood between us? Would my face be adorned with a shimmer, and would your neck be hugged by a white collar, my face naked, your face tired? Would we breathe together? I miss how sweat shimmered on your temple and how you run my chokers around your neck like a claim of love, of your own divinity, of your own power. Partner choker doesn't have the same ring to boyfriend sweater though, does it? But every time I didn't see you, I felt a pang of disappointment, and then I'd have to shake my head for being so silly, so stupid, so utterly ridiculous, because it was my move that slid our communication and relationship into an ice age. So here we go. I'm gonna send you letters I wanted to say, but I didn't know how to. Fragments from time, nothing in chronological order, and everything a mess. Should I apologize? I'm not so sure love is something to apologize for. Dear you, letter 13. Going to church felt like a responsibility. And yes, of course, there's redundancy in the queer story about white queers going to church and coming out as gay. And then there's the flip of other religious queers choosing not to come out at all. Happy Eid. So when I arrived to this glass city and saw my own reflection and in hopes reflected back at me, I thought I'd be leaving that chore of responsibility, except I didn't. Who knew culture and community held the same kind of responsibility that religion did? They're not the same, but the weight can still feel like shoulders being pressed down on by hands that could, is beginning to drown you out. Which is to say that constant investment in the sustained feeling of trying to prove I'm enough, or invest enough, or look enough, or preach enough, or claim enough, and it's not all enough, and it's too much for me. So the deeper that I sunk into the fight, the deeper I began to question it, the deeper I am questioning it. Activists will post stories and memes and heartbreak, and I wonder if you see it. I wonder if we're responding in the same way. I felt mourning in a way I'd never before, and it caused crawling cracks in the very opulent and shining ship I was navigating among a deep ocean I wasn't sure how to dip my toes into, but at least I was eager. I'm still eager, despite the water seeping in and the chilly dissension. And I know. I came to the city through a braid, and I am mourning in this city through a braid. I know. I keep talking in metaphors and then outright. I didn't know that you'd be the start and end of the braids linked and interlocked together. But when I lost someone very close to me, when my grandmother, not days after, sat me down, telling me that she hoped for my faith again, I thought of you. I just saw your smile. She kept telling me how my granddad would want me to have faith again, to believe in their savior again, to commit myself to a book again. And all I could think about was you. I imagined myself crawling into your bed and hugging your torso while you played video games. With you, my only responsibility was loving you in the moment. I could go every Sunday and worship you in trust and in vulnerability. Dear you, letter 2. Baby, I'm so sad I'm not with you anymore. I'm so sad about it, and I know that I broke up with you for all the right reasons. Baby, I still see your photo and I find myself in awe. I still love you so much. I get to say that. You don't get to take that away from me. I was so focused on finding the truth and making you face my pace that I didn't know how to just be, so fixated on the past that my present with you felt like a trap. I set the metal bars on my ribs and my spine on the wood, breaking us. I don't want to be heavy anymore. I wish I knew how to lose control with you. Trust the us, trust the world with us in it. Dear you, letter 21. Gentrification snuck up on me. Gentrification. I used to preach your financial prosperity as a blockade to other people of color, in reality, my own lack thereof. Gentrification housed me 8 floors high with white walls and ensuite laundry, and I made my bed the same way you do, with the heavy duvet under me and the light blanket near my feet, and the sun bright in the room. In a way, holding you, thinking about you, while reconciling my jealousy. Dear you, letter 7. My community scares me. And I don't know what the community looks like. Like, if I view ceremony and powwow and sweat the same I do religion, I can't escape returning home to a home that's not my own. This home full of mirrors poking holes in my desire to just be. My community scares me. I'm scared I'm not learning or giving or engaging or any of it enough. My community scares me. Don't tell my friends or my peers or my mentors. Don't tell the youth or the students that I wing. Don't tell the spectators or deniers or pitiers that my community scares me. Which one? All of them. Dear you, letter 10. I don't know what community I'm fighting for. Why do I keep hiring myself as a soldier when there's been no recruitment? It feels so abstract, community, belonging to something. I had always thought that community was something that you make with people. Like when you go to the beach each year and the same group of people go together. Those people help you out and you them. You give them a cup of sugar, or they help you put up shelves, or you marathon a horrible Ryan Murphy disaster on FX. Or you huddle as a horror flick slashes your calm front, making you jolt out and cry with laughter. I don't know what community I'm fighting for. I don't know, albeit a year later, if I'm doing any better. You know? I'm so insecure among the drums and so tied to the idea of powwow or ceremony being like church. How do I explain this to you? I want to not gentrify my communities. I'm so tired of having to wear beaded earrings or fringe or feathers or tan, earth tone, neutral colors to give the vague sense of who I am. I'm struggling to reconcile that I'm a byproduct of colonization. I'm struggling to come to peace and forgiveness that I am so eggshell, ivory, marble, diamond, moon, fully a success to the system of white supremacy. I'm so anxious when I adorn my favorite color, red. It's okay if you forgot. And now red feels more like exhaustion and defeat than it does anything else. I see the color and all I see is red eyes from tears, red on dresses, red on blood, red on pain, red on, red on, red on, red on, red on. And I just want to see blue. Like deep, dark blue. Like blue that would swallow green whole, blue that makes yellow feel like white, blue like letting yourself drift deeper into the waters, feeling the ping of panic deliciously tickle your nervous system, blue like going on a patio in the village and feeling like I belong, like my eyes caught a glimpse of the summer sky mid-laugh, blue like the way the water looked when we were on your rooftop. The cool water illuminated at the bottom in a dim honey yellow, while cotton candy skies curled along clouds as the sun set. Your legs around my waist, my arms just under you as you held onto my neck, blue like the blanket that was so light on us, but kept us sticky inferno. So I don't know what we're setting up for 7 generations after us. I don't know what we're setting up for 6 generations after us. If we just want to live, what does that look like? Do the 5 generations after us still see gentrification? Is the 4th generation afraid of each other because the virus is shifting our present generation? Have we thrived more than the 3rd generation before us? Are we still gate kept by the 2nd generation after us? What of the 1st generation? I see why you were so steady and still among your own ocean of community. The waves are much bigger than I thought, and there's no land for days. Dear you, letter 4. A spring day in Toronto. It looks like it's getting green, but it's still too chilly. You and I are in your tub, and there's Carly Rae Jepsen playing, and there's you all wet. I still think about having you on my stomach, back flush to chest, your legs dangling over me around mine as I worked you to completion. As I smacked your flesh, eliciting a deep and delicious moan. I miss working for your moans and relishing in your whimpers, so gentle, timid, but so heated, like a bonfire with too much liquor on it, so strong, like how our arms glided along each other, hands chasing flesh and desperation, panting on our tongue. I still think about you and how I could make you come to completion, how hungry for more I was, how our sheets began the words to our love story because we couldn't find a way out of bed. We didn't want to. We wanted to be one connected moment. Love, I miss seeing you blush beneath your dark features, and I miss grabbing your hand, guiding it dumbly over my thighs, hoping for a smooth transition, feeling you clue in, feeling your fingers shift and move with purpose. I miss your hand, snaking up my shorts, plucking the band and finding my... I still think about the night that we went out. Among buddies in good times, in prideful times, in dancing times, how you pulled me aside, how you pulled my arms above my head, and how you started to shake your head so vigorously, shaking your head and slamming my wrist against the emergency exit. And you looked at me and you said, I love you, with your slurred words and your high eyes. I love you so fucking much. Me giggling, I never want to hurt you. I love you. If anyone hurts you, you'll kill them. Me gasping. You saying, what? Don't laugh. I'm serious. I love you. I want you so bad, baby. You are my baby. You're mine. Tell me you're mine. Tell me you're mine and that you'll love me forever. And I said, yes. So I'm keeping my end. Forever is a long time. It's a really long time to completion. Dear you, letter 42. I don't deserve you right now, nor do I think you're ready for me. We have a lot of growth still, and people don't tell you that love is sometimes stronger than community, and that as abstract as love is, it's still so much more clear than community. I don't have regrets. I do, but I don't. I'm told by wisdom and old age that I shouldn't. I replay moments where I did different. I remind myself of the ways that you hurt me. I remember how we didn't listen, and I still love you, and I still miss you. It doesn't go away. I don't want it to either. I just want you to What does it look like to love me again? I want to be so selfish about it. I want so selfishly and hysterically and wantonly to be yours, to hold you in my arms. I want to pull you into my lap. I want you. Dear you, letter 77. I hope you're okay. I've been unpacking you a lot, and I have time now. The world stopped now. I hate that the world stopped because I didn't know my feelings for you was an ocean. I was so good at floating, and now I'm melting. Melting, present, melting, afraid, still, here. Dear you, letter 93. This is my last letter. I love you, and I miss you. But I think I've let it all go now. Love me. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Ty, so much for that last story that fills us with love on a night that I hope we're all celebrating, not just storytelling, but specifically 25 years of Queers in Your Ears. I'd like to thank Leslie Lee Kahn. I'd like to thank Jody James. I'd like to thank Rico Rodriguez, founder of Queers in Your Ears, and co-founder Claire Nobbs, and Tyler J Sloane, who's given us an exquisite story. All of the stories tonight have dug deep and told us so much about the queer world and about our place in it. And here's to 25 more years of Queering Your Hearing. We've got a long way to go, but one of the things that makes me inordinately proud is that Queers in Your Ears is always changing, always growing, always trying to find a space to give people a place where they can tell their stories. And the stories tonight have been beautiful and original and wonderful. It's been great to hear personal stories, but also to hear that exquisite folktale of yours, Jody. It's been wonderful to hear Leslie's experiences of just wanting to pee and Rico's dilemma about getting tested, Claire's being a guide, first, last, and always, and that lovely love poem that was so wonderful a way for us to end tonight. Here's to 25 more years of Queers in Your Ears. We have many more things planned this year, including an exhibition, a virtual exhibition at the archives later this year in October, and we're going to be doing other storytelling events. So thank you for joining us. We wish you love from all of us. Thanks.